Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. My name is Brian Rappaport. I am the founder and CEO of Quan. Want to first acknowledge Tony Venuto. Due to technical difficulties in the storm, he's unable to moderate today, so I'm coming off the bench to fill in for him. But this is definitely his panel, so shout out to Tony. Again, I'm the CEO and founder of Quan. I've spent 13 plus years agency side, working across both Zenith Media and Publicis and Rapport and IPG. I'm super excited to be here today. I'm very familiar with the brands that are on stage, the companies that are on stage with me, and we're going to get into some really awesome examples of creative executions and some of the cool things they've done in the out-of-home space recently. And looking forward to hearing what they have to say. So let's hop right into it because I know we're a little bit behind, and I want to first introduce all of our panelists today. First, Lynnwood Bibbens, CEO and co-founder of reachtv. Good to have you today. Sophie Kelly, the SVP, Whiskey's portfolio of North America for Diageo, who is actually in Australia right now. So definitely probably the farthest attendee today. Kate Reeder, VP of Brand and Marketing for United Sodas of America. Hi, Kate. Good to see you. And Michael Rosen, Chief Revenue Officer of Intersection.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Brian.
Great to have you today. This is an awesome panel. A lot of really, really great brands and companies. And we'll hop right into it. I mean, look, creativity and out of home, they kind of go hand in hand. 1 in 4 US adults surveyed have posted a photo on Instagram after seeing an outdoor advertisement. And I think the secondary life on social is just another, way that out of home works for brands. Brands are embracing storytelling. They're taking a more data-driven approach to their creative executions. And the channel, in terms of creativity, is only getting more exciting. And as we head into the future and into a non-COVID world, you could be sure that as the channel evolves, so will creative. So we're going to hop right into it. We have a few great questions, and we're going to see some awesome visual examples. So first, as we go around the room, and I'm going to start with you, Michael, what's your point of view on out of home? What's the value in the media mix? What makes it different than other channels? The good and the bad of out of home.
Well, I'll start with the bad because in my view, there isn't bad. And that's very different from other channels in terms of, no fraud, no viewability issues. All the things that plague digital and video and other channels actually doesn't exist in out of home. And then when you add the abilities that we've all been talking about, over the past couple of years in terms of attribution and measurability and flexibility, bringing the best of digital to the out of home world, that's what gets us really excited about the channel. And, I think having marketers not only take advantage of kind of the traditional power of out of home, but also opening up their minds to video and digital and mobile and other things where you have this great canvas for creative storytelling.
Cool. Kate, what about you? Your POV on out of home, having jumped into it with a new brand this year, good, bad. What makes it different than other channels that you've kind of utilized over your career?
Yeah, for us, I think I would agree that it's pretty much all good in our book. I think there's just something really magical and important about seeing something in real life, just out in the world. The physical space that out of home takes up, like seeing a can on your screen of soda, is very different than seeing a can that's kind of life size that you can pose next to. And so that was really important for us. And as far as creativity goes, I think it's the biggest exercise in patience and control for brand managers and people working at companies is how do you say less? And it's a testament to how strong the brand is. And so as you pair messages back, that's really important versus being able to shove everything in. It's easy to say 50 messages. It's really hard to keep it down to just one. And so I think that's really powerful.
Cool. Lynnwood, what about you? Thoughts on out of home, value in the media mix? What's the good? What's the bad?
I don't see the bad either. I think the bad is most people don't recognize the value of the out of home. So if there's a bad, that's the bad. I think that the out of home allows you to tell a story through breadcrumbs across multiple platforms. And when people embrace that, that's what there is. There's a billboard, there's a sign, there's video, there's this. When you look at it as a whole story and then be able to prepare it through, I think it's the most impactful and incredible platform you could use.
That's awesome. Sophie, finish up the question for us. What's considered good out of home versus bad, and what do you see, the value in the media mix?
Yeah, look, lots of great points have already been made, so I'll try not to repeat them. I'm going to riff off your last point, mate, and say that, one of the most magical things about out of home, I think, is format flexibility. I mean, if we've seen anything this year, we have seen the fact that our streets can be a voice for anything we want them to be, the creativity. And, you know, if you switch from thinking just about efficiency and awareness and amplification and pure media principles to the fact that the streets can be a creative canvas for the messaging you want to create and amplify, then I think you get into amazing stuff. We're going to talk about it later, but you know, the options are endless. If you think about other mediums, you're very tied to formats: 15-second, 30-second, 60-second. Digital has really opened up outdoor in an amazing way for message flexibility. And we've got amazing formats to play with. So I think it's one of the most creative mediums we can be a part of.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. So, you know, this panel is about creativity and creative, and the creative of the content itself, and also the creative use of the medium, placement, dynamic use, context, relevancy. How do those factors really relate to the impact of out-of-home? I mean, there's so much you can do within this space. I think we've already touched on it, you know, but in terms of like dynamic use of creative and all of these different factors I just mentioned, how as a brand do you utilize them, you know, in terms of impact? And Sophie, I'll just run it back with you since you just finished.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think when we were talking about this panel, we talked about the fact that one of the biggest things I think the outdoor industry can do is to really think harder about what I call old-fashioned comm planning, right? So go back to the principles of marketing. What are you trying to do? Later, we're going to look at some work. We've used outdoor to amplify purpose-driven messages, like on Crown. We have a purpose which is about inspiring exceptional generosity. What outdoor allows us to do is take that local to local communities and amplify acts of generosity in them. If you look at Bullet, we've used it to be a canvas for creation with our partners, you know, like our tattoo billboard, Grand Central billboard, which ended up as a destination for photos on Google Maps. And then lastly, if you think about Johnny Walker, you know, everybody's drinking, you know, whiskey. How do we encourage them to drink amazing drinks at the time of day we want them to? So if you look at what we did at Brookfield, it was all about the right kind of messaging to inspire people when they feel like having that amazing cocktail at the end of the day to pick up one of ours. So you can really go right the way through your messaging mix, and you can amplify different points of it to different audiences in different ways. And I think that's one of the most amazing ways that you can flex outdoor. So back to what are you trying to do and how does it fit in amplifying it?
That's perfect. Lynnwood, placement, dynamic use, context, and relevancy. How do those factors relate to impact, you know, of reachtv and what you guys do?
For us, it is playing off of what Sophie just said. For us, it happens every day. When we talk to a partner and we talk to somebody about messaging and around content, since we're a content company. So we have over 198 hours worth of content that comes into our library every single month. So when we look at it is how are we programming, how are we entertaining our viewers. And a lot of it was when we started looking at what brands wanted to do. Sorry, don't yell at me, Sophie. But for example, Belvedere had a problem with their vodka being, not only did they know that they were a great brand, but they were almost what I would call the forgotten brand. That a lot of people knew Belvedere, but forgot about it. And so instead of just doing an ad, we came up with an entire thing around original content that they were sponsoring, bringing that back to the format thing, bringing these 2-minute and 20-second that don't make any other format work for reach. So we were able to bring the content with Janelle Monáe. We were able to talk about the messaging. We were able to take over menus and actually do a nice, an entire thing across 21 airports, really focus on markets that made sense to reintroduce Belvedere. In that process, I learned something I never knew about Belvedere, and I drank way too much, I don't want to tell you, but I never even knew what it meant. I never knew it meant beautiful to see. So like there's things you learn throughout the process when you ask a brand, what's your purpose of what you're trying to do? And from there, you can go backwards. And that's probably one of the most impactful things that we've done, and that it drew a bunch of other people to us, from major networks, brands, to what have you.
Awesome. Kate, you ran an incredible debut campaign in the out-of-home space for United Sodas. One of the best campaigns I've personally seen all year. Unobjectively, of course. Can you talk about placement and relevancy of the formats that you guys utilized and how it kind of impacted the brand and the decisions that you made to go with those placements and formats?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're a brand based out of Brooklyn and our headquarters are in Dumbo. And so I think it was really important for us just to have kind of a stake in the ground in our community and in the neighborhoods, honestly, where we live. I live in Williamsburg. We've got our office in Dumbo. We got placements in Park Slope where other people in our brand live. But it was also because that idea of creating something where everyone is experiencing it at one time, I think is really important. When I get an ad on social media, I can't call someone to be like, hey, did you get that ad too? Like, that's not how it works. And you feel really siloed, which I think we'll get into later when we talk about COVID. And so that idea of a joint experience and being able to connect Manhattan and Brooklyn was really amazing for us through the big wild postings that we did. And then we supplemented that with Link NYC, which we were able to pivot to be in closer to outdoor dining and where people were spending their times outdoors. And so it's a little bit of that breadcrumb idea. I think for us, we really wanted to have a meet cute. We kind of talked about wining and dining at first, and you kind of go on your second date and third date. And so it was important for us to just put out something that was really a big statement, but didn't tell you very much about the product itself. It was kind of a bold, colorful statement. Variety for society is our tagline. Something that you felt some emotion, you felt like it had some gravitas to, and wanted to learn more. So we were really patient with how we executed everything around that.
Awesome. And then Michael, to finish off, like you hear the words dynamic and contextual, and you immediately think of Link. It's one of the most dynamic and contextual, formats, at least in New York and across all of intersections, portfolio. There's so many different tactics that you guys have. Can you talk about, placement, dynamic use, context, and relevancy, and how it really factors into what intersection does and their formats in the out-of-home space?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. So, I think for us, it's a marriage of looking at how marketers and our agency partners are planning their entire campaign, and it starts with audience. Then it combines content, creative, and then ROI. And I think that's really important to start with kind of the core of the media plan. And the beauty of what intersections assets, whether it's New York City with Link NYC or Philadelphia or Chicago or other markets, is again this notion of before you think about a specific location, you can actually buy audiences no different than your digital buys, right? So before you kind of relegate out of home to kind of be like, hey, I want to be on that street corner, let's talk about the target audience. And to Lynnwood's point before, we can follow those consumers, right? Because their behaviors, above ground is different than below ground. It's different than in bars. It's different than in gas stations, right? So I think it's really understanding data-driven audience insights to help do that. And then to your point, Brian, then when you take content and you target and you combine that with audience, you can use the digital formats to do some amazing dynamic creative that's based on time of day, weather triggers, news triggers, sports, the kind of things that are happening. Like, for example, we have a partnership with Foursquare that on the Link screens will actually determine the best times of day for consumers to actually go to grocery and pharmacies.
I love those, by the way.
Thank you.
I love them.
It's so good.
And so that's a really good example, thank you, of actually providing content to consumers. And it's also, Lynnwood's been saying a lot of things that are close to my heart because we are also programmers in the city streets, right? We're not just boards. And so to be able to have content that people are engaging with, it makes the ad experience that much more rich when someone is seeing, that retail or QSR ad adjacent to something that says, hey, now's the best time for me to go to my grocery store.
Yeah. Perfect. So a little bit more rapid fire. It's a question I'm sure that's popped up on every panel since the pandemic started. COVID hit the industry and all of us pretty hard. How did you guys pivot as a brand or as a company? Any surprises, lesson learned, 1 to 2 bullet points? We'll start with you, Lynnwood.
2 words. As soon as COVID hit, we immediately called our entire company together and I said, we're going to get through it no matter what it is. And I said, we're going to do 2 things and 2 things they're going to focus on, and that's innovation and collaboration. At this time, it's a time for us to come together, not only as a company, but as an industry, as a country, as a global community. And we really focused on what was our missing components of why we couldn't work with X, Y, or Z. And we found that there was a lot of things that were just missing connectivity between us and an agency, us and our content provider, us and what have you. So we really focused, part of our company went to that, the innovation side of it, and the other part went to collaboration. And then, you know, we had to take some hard, honest looks. I will be proud to say that Reach didn't lose any of our people. We did other things, kept our team together. We're a smaller team, but we were able to keep everybody on our team. So we were, you know, we're fortunate in that manner. But that was our big plan out of COVID.
Kate, what about you guys? You know, brand launch in the middle of COVID. So kudos to getting through that. How did you guys pivot, and what challenges or lessons did you learn?
Yeah, launching a new brand during COVID was very, very interesting to say the least. We had to really brace ourselves for thinking about how our business model might change. Initially, we kind of thought, okay, COVID, let's focus just on the D2C side of the brand and save retail for 2021. And our out of home actually was a huge catalyst for a B2B play. And I think people really want to know that you're still investing in a location and it's somewhere real, a physical space in that community, in that neighborhood. So that was really big for us in that sense. And then otherwise kind of balancing both sides of the business, which was interesting. I think as a small brand, we have a very finite amount of funds, and how do we spend that? And to me personally, I finally went and took the ferry one day, and the ferry was kind of, you know, bland inside. There wasn't any advertising, there was no color, and it hurt my heart a little bit. And so I think that as a brand, if we can spend our money and, you know, we're looking at the same kind of eyeballs, but where does that impact actually have maybe more normalcy, kind of bringing the world back to hopefully what it will be like in, you know, later 2021. If we can do that by spending some more dollars out of home and in the streets around us, that's really important for us.
Perfect. Michael, what about you guys?
Yeah, so, you know, I think we realized, and we realized it before, but, you know, out of home as an industry is a force of good. And, you know, using the important screens that we have in public places to communicate messaging, whether it's brand oriented messaging or public health messaging, you know, I think that was a critical place that consumers actually became aware of and valued. And I think that parlayed into the Harris poll data that if any of you aren't familiar, that the Harris poll data that the OAAA put out is talking about the connection that consumers actually have with their outside and outdoor surroundings and their appreciation of out of home. So I actually think this unfortunate pandemic has put a focus on the power of out of home, that you know, consumers, you know, are 65% more appreciation of their surroundings, 68% more greater appreciation of out of home. And then 68% of the people surveyed said that they don't want to keep looking at their phones. They don't want to keep, you know, they're having fatigue. Yeah. And so there's this power that we have that, to Kate's point, it's not something that's one-to-one, it's one-to-many, but it's measurable as if it was one-to-one. And I think that's just a really powerful, beautiful thing.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more. Sophie, take us home with this. Any lessons learned or surprises of COVID? How did you guys pivot?
Yeah, I love all the points already made. I think for us, we're really lucky because most of our products are enjoyed at moments of enjoyment or celebration or reward or socializing, right? And, you know, we kind of have celebrating life every day, everywhere. And we really pivoted that to, you know, this is a time where we have to support those who support us, right? So all of our work pivoted to support local communities, support the bar and restaurant trade, and really get behind that. And you see like Crown Royal, whether it be the stuff with Ari Lennox and Auntie Ramos, remaking If You Want Me to Stay, and every time someone streamed it, raising money for bars and restaurants, right? So we went into heavy overdrive of, we got to keep the people and help the people who make our brands work. And that was a major focus. I would say the second thing was diving into the communities and seeing how we could help people get through what has been an incredibly tough year. And, you know, I echo what Kate and Michael have said about outdoor becoming much more of a shared experience and a medium for voices for communities. If you look at some of the activity that we've done, it's been about handing our media over for people to paint the streets, okay? And then using that and documenting it and turning it into stuff that people could buy to raise money for those communities. So, you know, what you're really seeing us do is look through the lens of using our marketing to help support the communities who need it. And then the second thing is, out of every crisis comes an opportunity, you know? I mean, format changes, on-the-go cocktails. There's just a huge part of the way you can actually get drinks in hands that will be fundamentally changed forever. What we're doing at home with consumers. I mean, I shouldn't say this, actually, I'll get busted. I never really made a craft cocktail at home. I enjoyed it in a bar, but man, I wanted my, you know, old fashioned on Friday night. So it's really getting into facilitating how you match the trade with this at-home channel and build infrastructure so that people can create great cocktails at home, which might sound simple, but it wasn't the focus it now is. So yeah, it's been, you know, hard, but also a lot of fun. And we've done a lot of great things for people that, you know, we may not have done in previous years.
Here's to great cocktails and good soda.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
So we're kind of running low on time, but we do want to hop into some examples of recent creative. So if production could pull up some of the slides, and we'll kind of go through it. I don't know. Oh, there we go. I wanted to make sure I was able to see it. So we can quickly chat through everything. And Sophie, you can kick it off. You know, heading into slide 2. Which is you guys.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of flick through them fairly much at pace. I've covered most of this, but like this goes back to Crown Royal's purpose, which is inspiring exceptional generosity. And we have, we're very active in the communities, and all this stuff is takeovers locally. One thing I will say about this is, you know, like outdoor doesn't have to be and should not be a blunt instrument. Like this helps us double down in communities and rotate that across the country. It's not a one size fits all. So really tailoring that notion of generosity to the community where we're working in, and using outdoor iconically and also tactically in that messaging. If you go to the bullet example, I think it's really interesting because bullet is, that's Crown Apple.
This one, yeah.
Some of this street art. So, you know, what we found about Crown Apple was that people were creating art around our bottle. Like it was just the weirdest thing that was going on. So we basically co-opted the behavior and culture with creators, turned our media over to them, and they created it. So our Crown Apple work is really basically street art. You know, if you go to Bullet here, Bullet is a brand that has been built by bars and local partnerships. And these two particular boards, you know, I shouldn't say my favorite because again, people will get mad, but they are. This neon one, this tattoo board was built by local tattoo artists in LA who came to the brand and said, we'd love to create a massive billboard, but make it a tattoo billboard of LA. So that's what that is. And believe it or not, the most difficult part about that was stopping people stealing it. So we had to build an infrastructure about it. But it became a landmark in LA that people would go and get photographed in front of. Then same with the neon sign. That was an artist collaboration to create a neon outdoor sign. And it's now still up in Grand Central Market and sits on Google Maps. So there's outdoor being creative, but also amplifying a partnership in a different way that becomes a destination. And we put an experience around it. So back to Kate's point, it felt like a shared experience, not just a static piece. And then lastly, some really amazing work with Johnny Walker. And Johnny Walker is an incredibly iconic brand. And, you know, people love it. And so here you see is using iconic landmarks to really play off and let the icon off the leash and have some fun with it, so people aren't thinking too seriously. And then you see us using it very simply by using day parts to prompt different drink servings, getting more people to drink. So running the gamut there on how, and hopefully proving the point that there should be no lack of creativity in how you use outdoor, and that it isn't a one size fits all. It can be purpose, it can be tactical, it can be local, it can be national, right?
Totally.
That's a couple from me.
And we can move. Thank you for that, Sophie. Sorry, I'm not trying to rush anyone. I want to just be kind of time.
I got too many slides there. I got lots more examples in outdoor, as Michael knows. Yeah. But anyway.
So let me riff on some of the items Sophie mentioned. So this is a beautiful example of amplifying the Crown Royal brand campaigns that Sophie mentioned, and especially with COVID. Exterior buses are incredible moving billboards in neighborhoods, right? Whether it's cities or in neighborhoods or both. And so, the creativity to extend there, especially, we think over the course of the next year is going to be increasingly important, not only from the beautiful canvas, but measurability as well. Next slide.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, this is a great example from a creative perspective in Chicago. For Crown Royal Regal Apple. But if you go to the next slide to iterate Sophie's point on format flexibility. So, in November, these same formats could be actually pivoted to really focus on, on social change creative that was happening during that time. So, we could make those changes pretty quickly. Next slide. So, remember airports? I was actually this is Charlotte Airport. I was actually there on Sunday as I was traveling back from somewhere. And, I think whether it was pre-COVID or post-COVID, you would be surprised at how crowded in a mask way it was. And I just think the power of the creative there is still something that actually is what COVID has actually opened up to is not just a B2B play, which it always has been, but really understanding that, hey, there are consumers who consume products at airports. And so I think we're going to see a long-term trend where, a lot of consumer products are going to be in airports reaching consumers on the go. Next slide. So a great example getting into Johnny Walker, but I want to go to the next one, which is Bullet. And this also, to Sophie's point about creative flexibility and format flexibility. So this was a focus on the Tribeca Film Festival in March, and it was really around specific screens, specific day parts, specific share of voice. And then as the summer months moved into play and COVID came in, we then pivoted that to really become an extension of an on-premise experience for folks having drinks outside. And then I think one more for me. So we also talked about community voices and purpose and mission. And I did want to take a moment to talk about an incredible campaign that we partnered with Facebook called The Power of the Comeback that aided over 200 small businesses, Black, Brown, and LGBTQ owned businesses in New York, Chicago, and LA. And talk about impact. And I want to read something because I thought this was just a great example that this was from one of our small business owners. All of our funds are going to keep staff. Seeing our ad will allow us to do that and keep people and keep our employees focused. And so doing good, kind of getting back to what we talked about, is just something that we all want to. We want to drive our products, we want to sell, we want to generate revenue, but we want to make an impact on society. And this is a great example of that.
Awesome. And on to the next slide, Kate. I'm sure you could chat us through all this beautiful creative.
Yeah, sure. So here you're seeing our Wilds postings that were throughout Brooklyn and Manhattan. For us, this was really, again, I think I said it before, I probably said it a few times, but an exercise in restraint and just patience. Being a new brand, we've been working on the brand for years. And so for us, we were like, maybe we put in some more information or maybe some puns, about like a little jab at soda, and we call ourselves Soda 2.0, or maybe it's seltzer, and kind of play up a little bit more on that product side of things. And we actually said, when I was hired for the brand, the first thing I saw was just a screen with the 12 cans, and that was it. And I said, I'll work for you guys, like hire me. And so we kind of wanted that same experience for people to see us and understand us. and really fall in love with the branding. It was a bet on the brand decisions that we made prior to launch and letting that speak for itself. And then using Link NYC really strategically around town, around these wild postings to amplify that message. And we put in nods to, local messaging, depending on what neighborhood you were in. And I think that just goes back to the idea of out of home being really thoughtful. You're putting yourself out there, but you're also, part of someone's day. And so if we can put a smile on someone's face, like, let's do that. If we can let them know that someone actually thought really thoughtfully about how they were going to be walking about and what they would see from this, especially seeing the same thing over and over again. How do you make that a really nice experience? And so we tried to use the duality of that. The other thing I would say that I see a question in here from someone from the audience about what do we want from agency partners? My agency partner is Brian. And what was really helpful is understanding the context from a consumer's perspective, from someone walking on the street. What do they see and what is that experience like? And so in the top right corner of the slide here, those cans that are there, they're on a corner. And what we did was a really subtle shift in some of our other out of home was that we had some cans with the logo and slowly they spun around, and then the flavor side was around the corner. So there was a little bit more mystery built in depending on what angle you were coming from. And I think little things like that is really nice.
Awesome. And then last but not least, thank you so much, Kate.
Yeah.
We jump ahead 2 slides, 3 slides we've spoken about, Link before. And just to wrap up, Lynn, if you want to say a few words just about, sorry, the one after this one or 2 after. Yep, one more. Before we close out, just if you want to speak a little bit to the creative or specific, highlight that you can call out over the past year before we, end this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of, we can jump into specifics, but a lot of what we saw and what we focus on is taking national stories and being able to national content and making it local and being able to customize things and tell that local story at a national scale. So vice versa, playing around with those words. A lot of shows that are coming on, I mean, this is the end of it, but having from the set, we did it is from the set with the SWAT team, and we were able to get into why they shot, where they shot, and then you do the tune in. Again, as Michael said earlier, when you do really cool content and you have contextual promos after, that engagement is high. So, that's why we do a lot of our things are around content. If you want to go to the next ones, you'll see a couple of these in a row. Get Pride, if you can.
Oh yeah, if you guys want to just flip through to the end.
Yeah, that's just us in to give an idea to everybody here. Because we're in 750 different locations inside the airports, and also now we launch at 1 million hotel rooms. When you look at this and you think about all those brands and all those shelves, a lot of the things, this is what drove the Belvedere conversation when we first launched with them, and this is what drove other brands to come to us, is how do we tell the story of that brand while somebody's sitting there having drinks? And so it's a great way to tell that story at that last second when they're making a decision. You can keep going. And that was just a quote from Rodney. I won't make you guys read that. But the interview series that was on there was important because it was just with Janelle Monáe. I talked about that earlier today. And it's funny, we have a show called Tales from the Cast that was all about Don Julio, right? And that show, we saw how they built everything in there, and right from there, I'm a fan watching that, right? So I think what happens is what I love about, what I love about what we do is we get to tell stories. And what I love about what Out of Home is it's not a specific thing. You know what I mean? It could be television, it could be a digital, it could be a script, it could be so many things. I think that's the dynamic that we should leave with. It's not one thing.
Yep, definitely. Thank you so much. I wish we could stay here all day and do Q&A. Unfortunately, we're behind. So I feel terrible about that. There's so much that could be said. Any content that's been missed, which wasn't much, will be available online after this session. I do want to thank all the panelists. I'm sorry that we're not going to get your thoughts on looking forward to the year ahead, but we can definitely follow your brands and companies. And I really appreciate you guys all taking the time from both the continental US and outside the continental US. Stay tuned for more content. Thanks so much to the Ad Club in New York for having us, Gina, Meredith, Alicia, Ryan, Dave, Jill. Really appreciate the opportunity. And stay tuned. There's a lot more good stuff coming up today. Thanks, guys. Happy holidays.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Bye.